jump straight into the interview.
Okay.
And I will start with my famous intro. What's up, good people? You're watching BRUDDC Entertainment. I am joined with a very special guest, Mr. Glenn Wilkinson. Glenn, how's it going today, buddy?
Today is a great day. Here from sunny Ballymena in Northern Ireland. It's lashing with rain as usual. That's why this place is so green. But it's a great day. Great
Okay.
day.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And obviously, we spoke just a second ago, and one of the questions you asked me was, "Why did I want to speak to you?" And at that point, I said that it always piques my curiosity when I come across these feeds of these really jacked-looking guys. And obviously, it wasn't just that you were jacked and stuff. It was you said you were 56 or 57 or
No,
something.
I'm 54. Now you're putting two years onto my age there.
Oh,
Come on.
there we go, 54. But still, 54. And when you look at some of these physiques, some of these men look like they're in great shape, but you can't help but think that maybe they've juiced along the way. And one of the main things that you said in the intro video was that obviously you're a natural sort of. So that's what
Yeah.
initially piqued my curiosity regarding yourself. But let's just start with a little bit about you, how you got into fitness, and we'll move on to the juicing allegations.
Okay. So I'm a ex-field professional footballer. Back in my early days, I was big into soccer. I played in England. I had a couple of years at Chelsea. So that's where my fitness journey really started. And the good thing about back in those days, as part of your soccer sort of profession, you had to get an education as well. So I went to college whilst I was playing football, and just as well because at 19 I hung up my boots. But there's a story in that because that has come full circle. So yes, I've only ever had one job since I finished playing football at 20 years of age, and I have been a coach for the entirety for all of my working life.
Okay, wow. You said a lot there. I couldn't help but thinking. I couldn't help but thinking you played for Chelsea, and
Yes.
tell me about
Well,
that experience. And when did you play for Chelsea? What sort of level did you get to? What was the best
well,
sort of
and
moments and stuff?
yeah, I never quite made the first team. But I was there for 3 years. I signed for Chelsea when I was 11. That was back in the day when the likes of, you're probably too young for these players. There was like Kerry Dixon who played for England.
Yeah.
We actually got relegated when I was at Chelsea down to
Wow.
the old. Now this was before this. This shows you how old I am. This was before the Premier League. This was in the old First Division.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was a young lad leaving Belfast at 16 years of age to go over to London, to the bright lights, and to try and to seek stardom and fame and all that, and it didn't work out, as do a lot of young boys who start off in professional football. I think 0.5% actually make the grade. So
Yeah.
it was a great experience, great. I learned a lot,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I mean, my like as like my son, he went through football from a very young age, and a lot as young boys, they all try and make it. But what is it like? Surely, when you actually get in there to play for Chelsea, or you get there along the cuffs of it, sort of, you're amongst the first team reserves, all the rest of it. What is that like? Like when you surely in your mind you must be thinking, "I've got this. I've just got to work harder." Like, what is that feeling like?
well, I suppose you need a lot of luck,
Yeah.
and football is all about opinions as well. But I probably wasn't tough enough. It's a jungle, and it's the survival of the fittest. You have to be so single-minded, so focused on what you're doing. And again, with me coming from Northern Ireland over to London, I was very homesick. But and I just wasn't tough enough. I wasn't. I was vying for positions with guys who were just mentally stronger and who just maybe wanted it that little bit more. But again, just going full circle, I could talk for Ireland, so
No,
forgive
no,
me
no,
for talking too
no, no,
much.
no, no, no. We love that. We love that. So, were you obviously you're a bit older than Roy Keane, aren't you? Slightly, it's about 5 years older than him, aren't you? So you
Yes.
wouldn't necessarily come across him in the Well, I don't know. Would you? Would you have come across him at
No,
all?
well, the players that I played who went on to make it were people like Graham Lasso, who played for
Graham
England.
Lasso. Wow.
Yeah, so I played in the same team. There's a guy, Frank Sinclair, who went on to play for Leicester in
Yeah.
FA Cup finals. The guy, Craig Burley, played for
Yeah.
Celtic, captain Scotland. Eddie Newton. There's a Jason Cundy, who is I think he's on Talk Sport now.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how all these players, you're going back 30 years, some have, went on and had, stellar careers in soccer, and some, like myself, who didn't quite make it, have gone down a different path.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. I mean, at least to have had that experience, to be that close. But I don't know what's worth being told. There's a big thing now with academies and footballs. Some of these kids, like managers, are just looking at kids and they're just like, "Nah, he's not good enough. No way," sort of thing. And then someone that you would look at and you'd think, "Okay, he doesn't look great at all," but he gets made. He makes it. So
That's it. Yeah.
the opinions, it's painful, really, isn't it? Though, because it's just like
Yeah.
you're at the mercy. Arsene Wenger famously said, "What did he say about Cristiano Ronaldo? He won't be a fabulous player. He's too sort of
Uh-huh.
tricky and blah blah blah."
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson, he once compared Phil Jones to David Beckham. Said Phil Jones is going to be a much
Oh,
better.
sorry.
Yeah,
Shouldn't laugh.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Well,
That's what Alex Ferguson famously said. Phil Jones is going to be better than David Beckham.
oh dear, you got that one wrong. I think he got a few others wrong as well, if my memory serves me. But I can remember the day I was 19 when I went into the office and they were giving out the contracts,
Yeah,
and I can remember it as if it was yesterday. That those vivid
yeah,
conversations that I had with my then reserve team, saying, Glenn, we've decided that we're not going to renew your contract. So going back 30 years, I can imagine the situation where I was sitting, and that maybe those sort of feelings of rejection have maybe spurred me on in my career, in the fitness career. And it's amazing how things that have happened in your past, can have an effect in your future, and they can sort of shape your future, if you understand what I'm saying.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. I mean, some people, it's the downward spiral from there. They hear that bad news, they get cut. Like famously, I think it's about 3 or 4 years ago, a young boy, he got released from a club, 15 years old, and then committed suicide. Um,
Yeah. The,
it,
the,
it-
the
it's
repercussions are and the ripples in the water that can last for years and years. And that's something, I am really open, and I can be quite vulnerable and with my feelings. My wife always says, Glenn, you give away too much. You're too open, but
yeah,
it's just the way I am. I think for guys, of a certain age, or not even a certain age, we don't communicate with each other enough. We don't talk,
yeah,
and we don't, say, well, you say, if you meet someone, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. But a lot of the time they're not. So there's lots of things, that I'm passionate about, not just fitness side, but
yeah,
trying to help guys and be an encourager. I love encouraging people.
yeah, yeah,
I'm in town in Belfast and I see a guy with, nice pair of shoes, nice jeans. I would go up to him and say, listen, you're rocking it today. And sometimes people say, whoa, what's this guy on? But
yeah.
it doesn't cost anything to encourage someone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's so much negativity out in the world at the minute. Whenever you do something nice, people always think there's an ulterior motive,
Absolutely.
sort of. So, yeah, like even
Absolutely.
I've helped people all the time with certain things. And sometimes I do it for free. And sometimes I
Yeah.
help people even though I know I'm going to end up getting stitched up anyway.
Get stung.
I still
Yes.
help people, but in my mind, I'm helping that person, helping them
Absolutely.
not make the same mistakes that they're doing over and over again. And that's just me. And I think there's people out there like that. But going to the
Yeah.
fact that you were talking about men don't open up and stuff, this is one of the biggest things I get hit with all the time with my interviews and stuff. Like, how comes it's only young, pretty women that you have interviewed and stuff like that? And I'm just like,
Uh-huh.
I try to reach out to as many people as I possibly can. And most men, as soon as they hear it's sort of life stories, experiences,
Yeah,
and sort of, they're not really, they don't want to be vulnerable, they want to keep that perception of that big strong man, and
yeah,
so it takes a very big man like yourself to come on all jacked up and saying, talking about the
yeah,
vulnerable sides of his
absolutely.
past and stuff.
I don't think it's a negative to be. You can be meek. It doesn't mean that you're weak.
Yeah.
I think being vulnerable and having a vulnerability about you is actually a strength, but it can disarm other guys around you if they're not sort of on the same journey.
Yeah.
I I have a couple of jobs, but I am a strength and conditioning coach for the Irish League champions. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Larne FC. Um,
Um,
so so going back full circle into soccer, Larne FC, we have won the Irish League the last 2 seasons, and we have qualified for the first time ever. An Irish League team has qualified for the Europa Conference League
oh wow, wow,
playoffs. So this season I've been to Latvia, I've been to Kosovo, we're going to Kazakhstan. So we're actually, it's an amazing experience for my local town, and just to be involved in this. So sorry, I'm just going off
no,
on
no,
loads of
no,
tangents.
that's fine. That's fine. That journey of like a small club, and especially for your local team, and it means a lot more. It does mean a
Yeah.
lot more. Most people don't necessarily even support the local team in their area,
Yes.
sort of thing. They always have a soft spot for them, but they always end
Yes.
up supporting like a bigger team. I'm probably guilty of that myself, but
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I
uh,
would encourage your listeners, or even you, to reach out to Larn FC on Instagram. We're a fully professional team,
okay,
um, and the fact that we're playing a team from Norway called Molde. We're also playing a Belgium team called Ghent.
wow,
We're playing a League of Ireland team, which is in the Republic of Ireland, called Shamrock Rovers. So we have all these massive, massive games, and the fact that we made it through to the Conference League means that we've generated £3 million for our local club. So
wow,
watch this space, and it's a great blessing for me to be amongst those guys. I look after their, as I say, their strength and conditioning, their
wow,
nutrition, and also I help with their well being as well,
yeah,
and
wow,
their mental health.
wow.
So
I
sorry,
find it. No, no,
I'm
no. That's
talking
fine,
too
buddy.
much.
That's fine, buddy. That's fine. I find it very interesting how you didn't like what you. One of the main reasons you said for yourself was that you didn't. Why you might not have made it in professional football was that you weren't strong enough and physical enough, and now you're giving that back to the kids. Is it almost like? Is it almost like? Look, I want to prepare you for like what's
Yeah.
coming your way if you want it, sort of.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm saying I physically I had all the capabilities,
Yeah.
because I think I've been blessed with good genes and things. But it was the emotional side. It was the being away from home. It was, the consistency of day in day out having to perform, and I can see a lot of the. So we have a scholarship program as well. So there's the boys, they get, their ambition is to be professional footballers, but they still get an education as well. So I can see when some of them go into their shells, and I can see some of the traits that I had back then in these young lads, and I try to. I know that they're all not going to make it, and there's going
Yeah.
to be a lot of disappointments. But if I can and sort of prepare them in some small aspect, well, I think that's good.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I've done football coaching as well from a very young age. I started with my son's team under 7 and took him up to under 16s, and like I've always been like a scholar of sort of like just finding out what the actual players that are in the academies at the same age as them are doing, sort of. So
Hmm.
I've always sort of go around it, have a look, see what's the competition is, and one of the main things I've always said to the kids is like, some of you have got brilliant skills, some of you've got, great pace, whatever it is you've got. But the boys that are playing in the academies right now, you not need to look at them. And the one thing that you can't have as an excuse to let them beat you is fitness,
Yeah,
strength, and the hardest thing to teach a kid is to pass the ball, like, you know,
Yeah.
a simple pass of the ball. I mean, it looks so simple when we watch a Premier League side, and it goes from the goalkeeper, centre back, left back, it comes back in, and it comes with intensity, on a press as well. You know,
That's it. Yeah.
it looks so simple, but you know, but
Yeah.
these kids, in their mind, they want to do the step overs and everything
Yeah.
before they've even mastered the basics of passing and moving and keeping the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I've always said,
A
like, you
lot.
know what? Yeah, go.
A lot of the time as well, it's their lifestyle as well. What they're doing outside of the football situation, with their nutrition, with their sleep, with their prehab, with their mobility. There's so many different types of segments go into, to making a professional footballer. Look at Ronaldo. Like,
Yeah,
his 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 body fat is ridiculous. But again, one shoe doesn't fit all.
no,
You can be too lean to be a soccer player, because then you can open yourself to injury. So it's quite, there isn't a uniformity in a particular soccer physique,
yeah.
because they're all different.
What is it like when you see when you look at the kids' faces and you see they've all got that hunger and desire? Don't get me wrong. If they're playing if they've got to where they've got now and they're playing in the Europa sort of, is it Europa Conference League, isn't it? That's what it is.
Europa Conference League.
Yeah.
So there's three bands. There's
Yeah.
the Champions League,
Yeah.
there's the Europa League, then there's
Yeah.
just the Conference League.
Yeah, I'm a Man United fan, so I'm still trying to come to terms with that Conference League. I think maybe you guys will get through, and then we'll see you guys later on in the line now down there. But yeah, I mean, it must be like, you know, the eyes are on them. You know, one good goal, one good pass, one, like, if you show
Yeah,
something out there, you know, the window's open, and
that's it.
if one of your players gets signed, it kind of puts the whole club on the map again, doesn't it? Really, because, you know,
Absolutely. Well, one of
scouts
our
can,
young boys was signed from Larne to a Dutch team. Uh, I think Hague FC, for something like £400,000. So again, that's generating great money for a local team.
Mhm.
So there is a shop window, and especially with social media and with data, it's all data driven these days. Our boys wear the GPS, so we can see their numbers, we can see how fast they're running, the number of sprints, how they're decelerating and accelerating. It's all changed from when I was playing
Yeah.
football back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. You could get away with your drink, I imagine, here and there. It's amazing the drinking culture in football. Like when you hear the old boys like Roy Keane and stuff talk about, you know, and they talk about, you know, how much, like, you know, going out and having a good drink, and obviously best,
Yeah.
God rest his soul, and you know, as
Hmm.
well. But you know, so
Absolutely. Yeah. So
yeah,
I personally, I don't really understand. Our boys are really clean. Their lifestyles are spot on. That's why we've got as far as we have. But with alcohol, I've never really gone down that route.
well,
I still consider myself to be an athlete even at
professional.
54. So
Yeah,
alcohol with fitness and health, I don't really understand why
yeah,
people can do it, but each to their own.
yeah.
Each to their own.
Fair play, fair play. So one of the things you mentioned as well about the sleep, how important the sleep is, and I was watching a few podcasts recently with some of the pros, and they were saying now it's becoming a big thing where young players are actually addicted to sleeping pills because they
Uh-huh.
and the doctors are just prescribing them because obviously they need to get a solid sleep. They need that sleep so they're prepared properly in the mornings, like, you know. So what's your sort
Yeah.
of opinion on sort of like, you know, the misuse of sleeping pills for sort of like, you know,
I think you probably know where I'm where I'm gonna go with. I just believe things should be done naturally. Sleep is obviously really important for your hormonal transportation. It's when your testosterone is being passed around your body. It's when you're reducing your cortisol. But if you put the correct mechanisms into your sleep, not being stimulated, making sure that all the stuff that a lot of people know, putting all your devices off, maybe just calming things down with some nasal breathing before you go to bed. If you develop a routine, I have absolutely no problem sleeping, probably because I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning. 9 o'clock comes and I'm ready to sleep. So I think it's all about trying to create a correct atmosphere and a correct environment, which is going to encourage good sleep patterns.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. I'll drop one more question regarding football, and then we'll move on to the fitness side of stuff and what you're doing now. If you could go back now, what would you have
Mhm.
changed? What would you have changed?
Well, this is back in the day when I was there. There was no social media. There was no mobile
Yeah,
phones.
yeah,
I would be a bit of a home bird, and if I had to speak to that 16-year-old back in the day, just to toughen up a little bit, just to suck it up and just be a little, because I believe I had the talent. It was just that mentality. You hear a lot of things about mentality, and who does that mentality? Is it Rashford gives it the mentality?
yeah,
Just to be a bit stronger within myself and maybe
yeah,
believe in myself a bit more. I
yeah,
think coming from Ireland, we maybe had a little bit of an inferiority complex,
yeah,
coming over to London and
yeah.
the bright lights and all that sort of stuff. So if I had to have a strict conversation with myself, it would be just to toughen up and suck it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And I think one of the things that you always used to hear, and like I used to always hear, is use your brain, use your football brain, and you don't tend to understand this until you get older. So like if you put your head now in your 16-year-old self's body, can you imagine the monster that you would be? And
Oh,
that's kind of how you have to. I think that's kind of how you have to try and sort of coach children and stuff like that. But how would you sort of like put that in their heads? Because it's easy to say use your brain, think, come on, use
yeah,
your football brain and all the rest of it. But like, how
yeah.
do you sort of how would you suggest to teaching that to kids nowadays? Because you don't
Well,
understand until you're too old.
yeah. Well, I think that comes with time, but having a mentor, I didn't really have a mentor over there, someone who was going to get, maybe going back to the whole encouraging thing,
Yeah,
someone who would get alongside me and encourage me, because at 16 I was there on my own. It was all new to me. And so I think that's why at Larn, I think it's my role to get alongside these young boys and try to show them the pitfalls, and hopefully that they won't make the mistakes, that I can encourage them to be stronger, to have a stronger mentality, to have more of a focus, to have more of a vision. So again, if I had have had a mentor back when I was playing, I think that would have made a huge difference.
fair play. And I suppose it's really difficult because everyone's got ulterior motives. All the other kids,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
other kids, they don't want to help you. That they sometimes you might find it, but you're sleeping or sitting next to a guy that wants your position.
Yeah,
And
it's a
you know,
jungle. It's
yeah,
it's it's survival of the fittest, and
yeah,
and with the money and everything at stake, you
yeah,
can get some some scrupulous guys like with agents and all that. Like, there was no agents in my day. It
yeah,
was my dad who was helping me to
yeah,
try and negotiate a contract. But it's
yeah.
just amazing how time changes things.
Yeah, I think with how technical football is moving now, I think you can look like a good player. So I mean, some of these agents are finding players that just look like fabulous world beaters, but then when
That's
they
right.
sort of step up, it's like, wait a minute, I can remember
Yeah,
us like I can remember Man United spending 16 million on Bebe, the Brazilian kid, and he looked fabulous. You looked at him, you thought, wow. And then as soon as but a lot of people do say the Premier League is just totally different. Like, it's
yeah.
just now the Premier League and English football in general is just totally different. So
Hmm.
it's really difficult. Well, I don't want to
Yeah.
bore everyone to death, but what's your opinion? What's your opinion of this whole new culture of football where everyone is playing out the back, where the goalkeeper is now effectively a sweeper?
Um, I was watching a podcast, and it was the Liverpool manager who won the Champions League. His name has escaped me. Um, and he was talking about
Rafa,
Rafa,
Benitez.
yes, and he was talking about his disdain of tiki taka. That everything's coming out and clean, and it's quite boring to watch. I suppose that like with Pep.
Yeah,
Like, it is beautiful, when
it is.
everyone's so comfortable on the ball. Um, Again, back in my day, that the goalkeeper would never have had the ball at his feet. He just would launch it as
Hmm.
far as he can, and there was a scrap in the 18-yard box. And I suppose everything evolves, everything changes, and the game becomes a lot more technical. And I think it's. I watched. I'm a Liverpool fan. You see,
Yeah.
when I saw
Oh, great! You did.
Diaz.
You could have mentioned that the other. You could have mentioned that earlier.
When I think it took them something like 10 seconds to get from their box, and they scored, that when he
Yeah,
scored in with a
the
left
first time.
foot, and it
Yeah,
was just bump, bump, bump.
yeah, yeah,
It's beautiful to watch,
yeah.
especially if you're a Liverpool fan,
Mm.
not so if you're a United fan. But I suppose everything progresses. I think
Yeah.
maybe if we were to go back and watch one of the old reels for Match of the Day, when a goalkeeper like maybe Ray Clements would, just boot it up, would probably get a bit bored after 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's just
definitely.
evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, it just seems like the technical side of it, like, just talking Man United against Liverpool in general, like, just the press, like, players playing, like, we had Bruno and who else did we have? And Xerxes. Both of them were pressing as sort of like two, like in a 4-4-2 kind of, and then you had obviously the four sort of midfielders pressing up. So
Yeah,
you've got six players pressing the ball, trying to stop people playing out from the back, and
that's right. Yeah,
sometimes you just look at it and I think, well, it ain't bloody worked, has it? Like,
yeah,
they still
no,
cut, they still cut bloody through us and bloody,
that's
and it
true.
seems to be happening. But just even the lower teams in the Premier League, I don't think you can even call lower teams. They're all doing it, like, So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
technical
they
side of
are.
coaching now is just on another level. But
It's
we poured,
crazy. Yeah,
well, we got football fans. I've got certainly got a few football fans that watch my stuff anyway, so they'll probably enjoy it. But let's move on to you. You transitioned from ex-footballer. You didn't quite make it in the first team. You used that motivation to sort of turn you into the beast that you are. You've got you're in insane shape for a man of 54.
yeah.
How did you do it? And what do you say to the people that say this fella's on the juice?
Well, if I had a pound for every time someone accused me of being on the juice, I'd be a rich man. I can categorically say I'm not or never have been. I come from a CrossFit back. Well, originally I come from a natural bodybuilding background. I was lucky enough to be a world champion bodybuilder, and we got
Wow.
tested. We had urine tests, we had blood tests. So, and then I transitioned. I, I I became obsessed. Again, I'm just going to be honest with you. I became obsessed with the mirror and how I looked. And people are probably saying, "Well, you're sitting there without any top on. You're being a bit of a hypocrite." But the whole bodybuilding thing was pretty destructive for me as a guy.
Okay.
It made me compare myself to other guys. So I don't know whether you're familiar with it with the bodybuilding scene, but you'll be called out, and the round is called the comparison round.
Okay.
So automatically that's just bringing,
Yep.
maybe stuff from back in the day, that rejection stuff. When I was at Chelsea, I'm comparing my body, actually comparing myself to another guy, and it was just totally destructive, and it sort of took over my life, just how I looked, how lean I was, how many bodybuilding competitions I'm gonna do, and for my wife and for my kids and everything, it was pretty destructive.
Wow.
So here in my own gym, I don't have any mirrors. That it's all about performance.
Hmm.
It's not about how I look these days. How I look is a byproduct of the type of training that I do.
Yeah.
So after bodybuilding, I got into CrossFit. Love CrossFit. Very passionate about CrossFit. I was quite successful in it. I was first in Ireland, first in the UK, and I
Wow.
just miss going to the CrossFit Games. I don't know whether you're familiar with the CrossFit Games.
Um, I've probably watched them, but I probably don't. I'm terrible at actually knowing what identifying unless it's
Yes,
the Olympics or anything like that. Like,
yeah.
just which obviously
Well,
there's a big hoo ha about. But
yes. Well, look, the CrossFit Games basically it's the Olympics of fitness, and you've got different age
okay,
groups. So my age category was from 50 to 55, and the finals are in Texas. So you have to be a cardiovascular very fit. You have to be strong because there's Olympic lifting like a clean and jerk and a
yeah,
snatch. You have to be a good gymnast. You have to
yeah,
be able to walk on your hands and do all this crazy stuff. So basically, I devoted like 5 years of my life to try and get to the CrossFit Games. Didn't quite work, but I'll have another go in a maybe next year. So
Well,
my day is it's just revolves around health and fitness and eating correctly and making sure I've got the right amount of macros. I eat a lot of fat, guys at my age, in order to bolster your testosterone. Fat becomes very, very important. So I
okay.
might eat 150 grams of fat every day, like butter, avocados, nuts, and
Yep.
people don't really understand, how can you be really lean and eating all that fat, but it's
Yep.
good fat.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
talking too much again, I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no, no. That's fine. That's fine. I wanted to just touch on the bodybuilding journey that you went through. Like, obviously, like constantly comparing yourself. First of all, I wanted to know: is there a weight category for bodybuilding? Like, is there weight categories for it?
No, not in the federation. That you can have different height
Yeah.
classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's, I think that the height is a better comparison. Maybe someone
Okay.
6'4" standing against me at 5'8", it looks silly. Some federations do have
Yep.
a weight to height
Yep.
ratio that you have to
Okay. Okay.
achieve,
Yeah.
and a lot of the now these days it's the physique category, with the longer shorts.
Yep.
So a lot of bodybuilding competitions, sort of, you don't stand in your budgie smugglers. You
Yep.
have do you know what budgie smugglers are? Yeah.
I do indeed, sir.
So so you have long shorts, which I don't really understand, because you're not displaying your full physique. You can have a really fantastic upper body physique and have like two sticks for legs, and I
Yeah.
think it's all about balance in your physique.
Indeed, indeed. No, because I was going to say, because obviously you don't look very like you didn't look like like a 6 foot seven kind of guy, and then you got
Yeah.
people like Ronnie Coleman and stuff like that. And if you're having to sort of compare yourself to sort of like the Ronnie Colemans of the world, then I imagine
Yes.
that's quite disheartening, no?
Well, if you have the symmetry, it's all about balance, and
Okay.
making sure that you don't have any weaknesses. My physique is always quite balanced, because I pay so much attention to maybe areas of the body that other people neglect, like hamstrings, like your leg biceps, your soleus, and your calves. Your midsection. I'm only 75 kilos,
Well,
so it gives the illusion when you're quite lean. So to have, quite a bit of sort of separation in your arms, it gives the illusion that you're actually that little bit bigger. And when you've got a nice sort of small waist,
yeah,
um, it's all about an illusion. When I have a tracksuit on, or a jumper, it doesn't look as if I have any muscles at all.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
look like a skinny wee dude, but I like that,
yeah.
then, because you can get totally obsessed with it. So it's a nice contrast.
Yeah, indeed, and people tend to underestimate people like that as well. They see people and they just think, oh yeah, if you're wearing a baggy tracksuit, you like if you're not necessarily really bulky or anything, you look like a small guy. And then I've seen a lot of people fall by the wayside when that happens. Like
Absolutely.
mess with the wrong person. And
Uh,
I always say
yeah.
don't mess with anyone, because I used to be a doorman and stuff like that, and I used to see like
Okay.
big doormen going over to guys and absolutely get pasted by the smallest guy you would think of. So it's definitely not the
Uh-huh.
size of the. Definitely don't judge a book by its
That's right.
cover. And also
Totally right. Yeah.
in this crazy day and age, I would suggest that no one fights at all, because people nowadays are using knives and just
Oh, it's
pulling knives.
crazy.
It's insane. Like these 14-year-old kids, they got knives. Like I'm just trying to understand like what is the logic behind this madness at the minute, and what's the sort of don't know what's the answer to it. These kids are all carrying big knives and stabbing each other
Uh,
every day. It's
just
insane.
mental. No, it's crazy. I suppose it's but the breakdown of the family.
Yeah,
I again, this might sound a bit controversial, but I'm a dad.
yeah,
I've got three kids, and I believe it's my role as a dad to protect and to provide, and try and steer my kids in the right direction. And
yeah,
I think the breakdown of the family, and
yeah.
role models, and men who are gonna stand up and take the lead in their family. I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. Same for me. 3 kids. I'm not as young as you may think. I'm actually 40 years old, by the way.
Okay,
I'm not
you're
as young.
looking decent for 40.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I think now this is the time where you sort of give us your expert. Like most people, I would say, are just like on the. I would say probably the average person probably 30% body fat or something like that. Like I think I'm about 30 or just under 30% body fat. I do go to the gym, I do work out and stuff, but most people want to know is like, how do you get that lean, chiseled sort of physique? I know you do loads of courses and training and stuff. Talk to us about that and how do
Well,
they do it? Especially men in their 50s. You know, like that's what most
yeah,
people are going to say straight away. Like this guy's on the juice because he's 50 years
yeah,
old and he's looking the way he's looking. But explaining your sort of career and your background, it makes
okay.
sense.
Well, I think first and foremost, processed food is a killer. I don't eat anything that's processed. My forms of carbohydrate are I would sweet potatoes and potatoes. I don't I'm not big into pasta or rice or oats or anything like that. I have a rule of thumb that if it flies, if it swims, if it grows, so everything is very, very natural. I don't overdose on protein. I don't take protein supplements or anything like that. I try to garner as much nutrition from natural sources. I always look at my plate. I get as many colors on there as possible. I
Yep,
don't overeat,
yep,
but and there's certain times when I do maximize my carbohydrates, and that is around training. So before I train and after I train, and all this is all. I'm gonna do a bit of a plug now, if you don't mind.
this is
So
what it's
all
about.
it,
Yep.
all this is on my. I have a 10 week training and lifestyle plan being launched next week, and it's specifically for guys in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s who don't seem to have that consistency in their training. It's for a guy who maybe has gone to the gym maybe for a couple of years. He goes for 3 or 4 weeks, then he just falls off the wagon. And what I have done with it's called Grindstone Foundation, and I've just put all the resources and all the experience that I've had over 30 years into this 10-week program. And there's nutritional plans on it. There's the training that I do on a daily basis is on Grindstone Foundation.
Wow.
And it's things like manipulating your reps. And how I have chiseled my body is basically with the term time under tension. You're familiar with that?
Yep, 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 yep.
So I only lift 60% of my maximum of my 1 RM, but I do it really slow and really deliberately. So it involves having good mobility. So there's lots of mobility on Grindstone Foundation as well. I think, guys, my ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, they're bulletproofed because I've spent so much time doing prehab exercises, which is going to give me a foundation to lift that weight
Wow,
under tension.
wow.
So mobility, flexibility is very important to me as well.
Yep.
It gives you that basis to avoid injury.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as well. You see people in the gym getting like, especially our like when my age, when you hit that 40 mark, even I would say even 30, like you're trying to lift things, and the term bulletproofing, like is a common one now. Like
Yeah,
I've just literally been doing loads of research on my ankles and stuff like that because it's like I'm going to the gym, I don't necessarily do as much running as I should do because I find I've always had shin splints for a while, but I do a lot of cycling. Sorry, you got
yes.
something
Well,
then?
no, Jillian, my wife, has given me. She's pointing at her watch
No, no,
because
we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. Tell her we're
no,
wrapping
we're
up. It's fine.
fine. Um, so I am passionate. If I can do it, I don't do. There's no magic pill. There's no magic
No,
formula. It's just consistency. It's day in, day out. It's week in, week out. And my plan. I've made so many mistakes over the years, and what I do is not brain surgery. It's just being accountable. So the guys that would sign up, they'll get access to me. I'll talk to them. I don't want it to be just a training plan. I want guys to come together and be vulnerable as well and be open, not just about their training, not just about their nutrition, but about every aspect of their life. And just for a group of guys, I believe that there's power in guys to come together. And as I say, I'll encourage. I'll be the ultimate encourager, but I'll also give someone a kick up the backside. If I had a pound again for someone who says, "Oh, I don't have time to exercise," that that freaks me out. You've got to make the time.
Yeah.
You get one chance in this life, and you've got to make the time for exercise, especially when you're getting that little bit older.
Definitely. You see some people that haven't worked out and they start becoming really frail. And it's amazing how I've noticed people even getting shorter. Like
Well, yeah,
I've seen people getting shorter. Like, I've
they
seen
are. Yeah,
men getting shorter. I'm just like,
yeah.
really?
There's no
How did
bone
that happen?
density.
Yeah.
Stress, the right amount of stress in all aspects of your life, I think, is very important. That's putting stress on your skeletal system. That's maybe stressing your central nervous system from time to time. Getting out of breath.
Hmm.
It's important for guys 30s, 40s to get out of breath every once in a while, because the health benefits of maybe getting out of breath 2 days a week, very, very important. So mobility, time under tension, getting out of breath, having good sleep, it's all and I think I've been successful in trying to put all these aspects of lifestyle together.
Yeah, well, and one of the most common questions I imagine any fitness person gets is, how do I get my stomach all lean and chiseled and stuff like that? And people don't like the answer because the first thing you're going to say, most of the things, like if you go to Athlete X and stuff like that, the first thing he's going to say, look, I'm not going to bullshit you. It's all about nutrition and what you put in your body. And people
Well,
hate to hear it.
yeah, well, the old term, abs are made in the kitchen. At 54, well, first of all, you won't see your abdominals unless you have 10% body fat or less,
Yeah,
right? That's just the long and the short of it. Your abdominals are like any other muscle, that they will grow when there's a stressor put on them. So it's that progressive overload. I do work my abdominals. I work on a Swiss ball. I have contraction in my abdominals, but again, if you're not less than 10%, you won't see them.
that's not the answer that people want to hear. Unfortunately, people want to hear. People want to hear the magic one that people want to hear. Look, right? I want to eat whatever I want to eat. I want to eat whatever I want to eat, and I want to do some sort of workout to combat it, so I stay sort of lean. And what's your answer to those people?
It's not going to work. I'm probably at this moment in time about 8%. I have been leaner. I stay 8% all year round.
Well,
That does take a little bit of work. It does. I probably train most days twice a day. But with Grindstone Foundation and the guys who hopefully are going to go to my Instagram and onto my TikTok, um, I have to project. I walk the talk.
yeah,
I do. If I'm being honest, I walk the talk. And if guys don't appreciate that I have gone through all the things that they're going to go through, I've made all the mistakes, and I've just got to a stage in my life when I know what works. And
hmm,
again, I'm just trying to inspire. I want to inspire guys. If that doesn't
yeah.
sound too cliched at
That's
54,
sounds
why
amazing.
I love my fashion, I love my style, and
Yep,
it's the people that I surround myself with as well. I think
yep,
if you surround yourself with people who are motivated like yourself, and I've so enjoyed chatting to you, and I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people who are, again, all this stuff, but it's true. If I'm in a room full of people who are really negative, they're going to pull me down. I want
definitely.
to be around people who are maybe wealthier, who are
Yep,
who are fitter, who are more intelligent. So they're
yep.
going to bring me up, bring me
In,
up.
indeed, indeed. Glenn Wilkinson, final words to the guys out there, even women out there that don't quite have that motivation. Final words to them. What should they do to sort of make that first step? What's the first step?
Well, the first step would be to sign up to Grindstone Foundation. That
Perfect
would be
answer.
great. But
Perfect answer.
even even it's just getting started and being consistent. It doesn't matter. Like, there's a thing, couch to 5K. If you've never exercised before, you'll walk a minute, you'll jog a minute, you'll walk, get around people, get a community. But just, you've got to start. And once you start, you can't stop. You've got to keep going. You know, some days I don't feel like doing it, but once I've done it, that feeling, that well-being, the feeling of endorphins flowing around my body, you've just got to keep moving and you've got to stick at it.
Fabulous. Everybody, make sure you go check out Glenn Wilkinson. I will make sure I put all his links in the description. And Glenn, I'm going to challenge you. Well, I'm going to get you to challenge me to another day, maybe when you're free, to a 30-minute cardio workout. We're both going to do it together, and
Love that. I would love that.
we'll get that sorted. We'll get that sorted. But Glenn,
Can
thank you
I
very much.
can I
Yeah, go for it.
can I prescribe the exercises? Is it up to me to?
It's your workout, buddy. I'm merely a contender, shall I say? Yeah, merely a contender. But Glenn, it's been fabulous having you on. Great story. First of many
Thank you so
interviews.
much.
I always like to leave the door open if people want to come in and do more stuff with me. That's my thing as well. I like to be around the same sort of
Yes.
people like yourself. Glenn, fabulous speaking to you, and I hope you have a